Caffeine and Coils, and I'm Deanna.
And I'm Jenny.
So, Jenny, did you have your caffeine today?
I did. I'm an avid coffee drinker, I got this fancy espresso maker, so I made myself a latte this morning. It was delicious.
Oh, wow. Sounds really good.
What about you?
I had pre-workout, and then I had an energy drink a little bit earlier.
Yeah? No coffee?
No coffee. I only do coffee maybe a couple times a week.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I have coffee every day.
I used to be an everyday person, but ever since I started taking pre-workout, that's pretty much my caffeine source for the day. Yeah.
That makes sense. I think even when I do pre-workout, I'm still like, let me get a little hit of coffee. What's our hot topic for today?
Our hot topic today is ancient HVAC systems.
This ought to be good.
Yes. So I'm honestly not a huge fan of history. I've always found it a little bit boring, but I dug deep for the sake of the pod today, and I did some research on how did people cool buildings and homes before the invention of HVAC systems. So actually there are these things called wind catchers. They're also called wind towers, wind scoops, and I've even seen them also being called bad gears. But they're basically these tall kind of like silos that come out of a building, and they face the wind and they capture it. The wind comes down into the chimney kind of and flows through the building, and then the hot air escapes out the other side.
Okay.
It's actually pretty cool.
That sounds cool.
Mm-hmm.
It actually sounds, we live in Georgia, so it kind of sounds miserable, like during pollen season. Like, what would happen if all that pollen just blew right down? But for those who don't have massive amounts of pollen, I feel like this is good because it's fresh air, too. We talk a lot about how indoor air quality is always so poor because we just close everything up so tight now.
Yeah, I was thinking of Bob Prentice, and I was like, hey, this is a ventilation system that maybe he could get behind. I don't know. So the place of where this was invented is kind of disputed because there are 3 different countries that kind of try to claim it: Egypt, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates. So this is out in the desert where they do get a lot of good strong winds, so it might not work in other parts of the world, but it is also still used widely in North Africa, West Asia, and India. And they do actually have some some ways of filtering. They say that like if dust comes through the wind, which they usually try to build the wind tower high enough that dust particles and things aren't as much in that higher part of the air. Also, the wind is stronger and cooler the higher you get. But they say that the dust will fall down and get captured in this kind of like little pit area underneath the wind tower. But they do actually have some ways of filtering it sometimes. They have like nets and things like that can capture like larger particles or bugs. And I was wondering what the MERV rating is on that, but
I'd love to find out.
So there's also sometimes a subterranean pool that can help cool the air even more, but those aren't always a part of the equation. These first started being used it's as old as 3100 BCE. But there's evidence that it could have been used for many millennia, even into prehistory. Oh, so, wow. Before we even started writing stuff down.
So people didn't like being hot.
No,
from like the start of time.
We've never liked it. So we came up with these clever ways of dealing with it. So they also, of course, another benefit is they operate silently and without any electricity whatsoever. Although, because of global warming and things like that, people are kind of trying to figure out how to maybe utilize something like that more so that they can use HVAC systems less. And we're kind of moving towards, or some places move towards using building designs like this. So those are some benefits to using as it's silent. You can use it with electricity, and they also do have some sensor controlled moving parts or even solar powered fans that sometimes make semi passive ventilation. Now, there was another thing that I saw, which was called Native American pit houses. So these are houses that were built about 2 feet into the ground. So they would dig about 2 feet into the ground to build the house. And there's a canal in the back that draws in cool air, and then a hole in the top where the hot air and smoke, if they were like making a fire for cooking, to escape. It's also insulated with wood and mud.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
Right.
So it would be like a channel for them to like get the cool air?
Yes, it's like a little channel that comes through, and it just, I guess the air pressure, that's the thing that was kind of like mystifying to me, is like I don't really get it, but because I was telling my husband, like, the air, like, I don't think of air just moving around by itself, you know, but it does, because there's hot air and there's cool air and there's pressure. So the way these things are designed is, you know, it's creating a high pressure zone for the air to like flow into naturally, and then it gets sucked into the low pressure zone or whatever. I don't know. It's kind of
Isn't
cool.
It crazy that they figured that out without like
I know.
Yeah, without knowing it, they were like, they probably didn't know it was even pressure then, but they figured it out well enough to ventilate their little huts.
And I wonder how much of this happened by accident.
I know that kind of the channel one kind of makes me think of like the geothermal, because you know, like they put that in the ground and stuff. I don't know that much about it, but I read a little bit about it, but not enough to speak on it really.
So the more I was kind of looking around, I also noticed that there are some places in India that are using this. It's kind of utilizing old technology for our benefit today. But they came up with this art installation where they take these cylindrical shapes that they make out of terracotta, and they make this beehive pattern. Then they pour water over it, and as the water is being like cooled by getting getting sucked into the terracotta, and then as it cools, the air that's coming out of it is cooler, and they have this whole system set up. It's pretty cool looking. I don't know how effective it is, and that's another thing was the videos I was watching where people were like utilizing these things. They're like, it feels so much cooler in here, and they would like measure it, and it's like 88 degrees, and I'm like, as opposed to what?
I mean, we're used to our like 71, 70, 68, you know, we're used to those temperatures. They've actually said that we've adapted to like lower temperatures too. So yeah, the fact that they're like, and maybe that's what it was, like they didn't think that it was that hot because they were used to being much hotter.
And that was another thing, was that they're built this, I think it was in India, they built an apartment complex, and the way that they built it was kind of like a callback to the wind catcher idea, where, you know, air was being flowed through the bottom and dispersed out throughout all the different apartments. And they were like, yeah, it's 88 degrees or whatever. And I was like, what? That's way too hot. Are you crazy? But anyway, so yeah, I guess we just kind of relied on ventilation through windows and
that hot air rising.
Yeah.
that's what it is.
So then of course there was the invention of HVAC, which I found interesting. And nobody come at me for this, but I knew that it was invented by Willis Carrier, but I didn't realize that it was less a comfort solution in more of it was like a production issue because the printing factory that they were trying to print on paper and it was too humid and the ink was sliding off the pages. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that comfort was just an added benefit to it. It wasn't, that wasn't the intended purpose originally. And so I thought that was really interesting.
I always have heard the stories of where it's like the movie theaters. Like it really started to take off when the movie theaters put it in and they were like, hey, come in and cool off and watch a movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what a crazy, for me, it's like automatically I feel like we think about making our homes comfortable because we spend the most time there. But people just didn't have the means to make the investment back then because it was really expensive. So it was kind of wild to me to find out that it really started with the movie theaters and for different applications like that, like printing and things like that. So, yeah. There's a lot more history on all of that we could talk about in later episodes that we should definitely explore.
Yeah, I think we should get into modern HVAC systems, but it's kind of funny because even like in the 80s when my dad was building our house, he was considering not putting
Listen, this is about to blow your mind. So my brother lives in Southern California. And he purchased his house in 2018, 2019. And of course, this house was built in like probably the 70s or the 80s. No air conditioning, like no ductwork, nothing. Had never had any kind of HVAC system.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, in Southern California, I think it's a little bit more common because their weather is kind of more mild. But I mean, he put it in. He was like, I'm not sticking with this. Like, I'm going to put in something. So he did. But that blew my mind. I mean, which I guess in the 70s and the 80s, it wasn't quite as common. When we bought the old house that we have, there was like baseboard heating. And then there was no air conditioning, just baseboard heating. But that one was built in 74.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy to think about. I'm like, I'm so glad you changed your mind because I would have hated to just be laying there with a fan blowing on me.
No, my parents built our house in the 90s, and they 100% put HVAC in it. But I will tell you that my parents would make us leave the windows open between seasons until like the 11th hour. You would be like dripping sweat, and they'd be like, I think we can go one more week without the air conditioner on. And we're all like, please just have pity on us and turn on the air conditioning already.
And then as soon as they did turn on the air conditioning, you would get yelled at if you had the door open for more than 3 seconds.
Yes. In or out.
Close the door.
Yeah, for sure. Must have been a thing in the 90s. Now me, I guess I was just scarred growing up. We do not open our windows. We probably have the worst indoor air quality because we go from one to the other. I don't ever turn it off completely.
Yeah, I don't like opening my windows because I have cats that are indoor only, and I'm scared they're going to escape.
Yeah, that would freak me out, too.
Yeah. Well, that's all I have. That was really all I could find on ancient aliens of HVAC.
Ancient aliens of HVAC. I like that. We should do something more on that. Okay, so what's our ender today?
Today we are going to play fact or fiction, where we're going to say a fact and it's either true or it's not. So we're going to have to determine whether it's fact or fiction.
Okay. I have a total of 8 and none of them pertain to HVAC. So
I have 6 and I'm in the same boat.
Yeah. I thought it would be more fun to do something random.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully we don't have any of the same ones.
Yeah, I hope not.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. Fact or fiction? Butterflies taste things with their wings.
I'm going to say fiction.
It is fiction. Butterflies taste things with their feet. Did
Okay,
you know
yes,
that?
I knew it was either like a foot or an antenna or something.
That is so gross.
It is.
I don't know why it grosses me out, but it just doesn't sound.
Can you imagine if we tasted things with our feet?
Absolutely not.
That'd be disgusting.
Absolutely not. All right, you go.
All right. Speaking of feet, 1/4 of all of your bones are located in your feet.
I would say fact.
Yeah, it's true. Isn't that
Wow,
weird?
that's a lot.
There's a lot of bones in there.
That's a lot of bones in your feet. Interesting. All right, fact or fiction, golf balls have 300 to 500 dimples.
Fact.
It is fact. All golf balls don't have the same number of dimples. I didn't know that. I thought that they were like constructed differently, like with different materials on the inside, but I did not know that they actually did not have the same amount.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I wonder what that changes. Velocity, maybe?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Children of identical twins are genetically siblings, not cousins.
Okay, weird. Fiction.
No, it's true.
What?
So yeah, if you had an identical twin and you both had your, own separate children, they're genetically siblings because your DNA is the same as your twin.
But wouldn't they just be like half siblings? Because like,
yeah.
Okay.
I would hope, unless you guys have some kind of situation with your husband.
That's hilarious.
Sharing a husband.
All right, fact or fiction? The sun is not a star.
I thought it was. So I thought it was a fact. So I'm gonna say, wait, that's fiction. If you're saying it's not.
Right. Yeah, the sun is a star.
Okay, that's what I thought. Tortoises can live for 200 years.
Okay, I know sea turtles live like the longest amount of time. So I'm going to say fiction.
It is. They only live for 50 to 100.
Oh my gosh. Still though.
That's kind of a long time.
That is a very long time. Okay, so 3 strikes in a row in bowling is called an eagle.
Fiction.
It's called a turkey.
You're
right. Okay, go ahead. Your
turn.
That was a
guess, though. The largest domesticated cat on record weighs 55 pounds.
I would say fact.
It's actually fiction.
Really?
It's
my gosh.
He only weighs 46.8 pounds. 46 That's still huge.
That's more than my toddler. Well, little kid. My 5-year-old doesn't even weigh that much.
My fattest cat is like 12 pounds.
Both of my daughters are 12 pounds. Dang, that's a huge cat.
Mm-hmm.
That's scary.
She is scary. She bullies me daily.
All right. That's funny. Fact or fiction? Cake is the most popular dessert.
Fact.
Fiction. People tend to love pie more than cake. That is wild.
As soon as I said that, I was thinking it's probably pie because you always.
I'm opposite. I'd much rather have cake than pie.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Are you out?
No, I have 2 more. Or actually, I have 1 more. Mosquitoes are unable to penetrate silk.
Oh my gosh. I would say fact.
That is true. And isn't that weird? Because I would think that like silk would be.
I feel like it's really through. Like dense though. Like there's lots of little
fibers.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get. I hate mosquitoes so much, so I'm gonna get a silk suit to wear.
I will pay money to see this. I don't like mosquitoes either, and I feel like I
get bit by them so much.
Me too. And I have no good answer on how to make it stop.
Me neither.
So, all right. Kwanzaa is observed for 5 days. Fact or fiction?
Fiction. I think it's longer.
It is. It's celebrated for 7 days.
That's what I was thinking. Yes.
All right. Fact or fiction? Delaware is the smallest U.S. state.
Fact.
Fiction. Rhode Island.
Oh yeah.
Smallest.
It is really small.
Okay. Let's see. Last one. Fact or fiction? People are born with more bones than they have in adulthood.
Fact. They like fuse or something.
Yes.
Right?
So babies have 300 bones at birth, but closer to 200 when they become adults. So a lot of that, I know they talk a lot about like their, like the bones in your skull as a baby. Like I guess when you're born, like they need to be pliable and stuff. Like they need to be able to make it through the birth canal, I guess. So then once you get a little older, they do fuse together. So that's why you have to be careful with babies' heads.
Oh.
But I mean, I'm sure there's other bones and things that like fuse together. I feel like I only know about the one in
Yeah.
the skull. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Well, is
the
that
human
it?
body is amazing. So
It is, yeah.
all right, well that's all I've got for today.
Okay. So we will catch you next time, and don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.